The champagne fizzed in my untouched glass as I watched the Plaza Hotel ballroom transform into a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns. The annual Mount Sinai Hospital Charity Gala brought together Manhattan's elite, renowned doctors, billionaire entrepreneurs, and me, a 24-year-old biomedical researcher who could barely afford her Brooklyn apartment's rent. I nervously adjusted the red dress I'd bought at a Bloomingdale's sale. It was simple, but the form-fitting cut hugged my body in a way that made me feel different, powerful maybe, or just out of place among so many genuine diamonds and pearls. "Emma, darling, your mother would be so proud to see you here," Dr. Chen's voice brought me back. She had been my mother's mentor in the lab before the accident. "Margaret always dreamed of you following in her footsteps." I forced a smile. 5 years since Mom died, and it still hurt to hear her name said out loud. "Thank you, Dr. Chen. I'm doing my best to honor her work." The orchestra began to play something by Vivaldi, and the murmur of conversations intensified. I was supposed to be mingling, making connections, selling the importance of my research to potential investors. That's why I'd accepted the invitation after all. But all I wanted was to escape to the terrace and breathe air that didn't smell like expensive perfume and disguised ambition. That's when I felt it. A shift in the atmosphere, like the air growing heavy before a storm. I turned instinctively, and my eyes met his across the crowded ballroom. He was standing near the entrance, talking with a group of men who seemed to gravitate around him like planets orbiting the sun. Tall, broad-shouldered under an undoubtedly custom-made tuxedo, with dark hair slicked back with casual precision. But it was his eyes that held me, green as a stormy sea, focused on me with an intensity that made my stomach knot. I quickly looked away, feeling a blush creep up my neck. It was ridiculous. I wasn't a teenager to get flustered over a handsome stranger. I took a sip of champagne, the bubbly liquid fizzing down my throat like tiny explosions. "Excuse me," the voice was low, smooth as velvet, with a hint of something dangerous lurking beneath. I turned slowly, already knowing who I'd find. He was closer than I'd expected, and I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. Up close, I could see details the distance had hidden. A small scar at the corner of his left eyebrow, the shadow of stubble no expensive razor could ever completely eliminate. The way his lips curved in a half-smile that hinted at secrets. "My name's Jack," he said, extending his hand. "Jack Sullivan." Sullivan. The name echoed in my mind like a distant alarm bell. Where had I heard that name before? "Emma," I replied, my hand disappearing in his. His skin was warm, calloused in a way that didn't match the elegance of his tuxedo. "Emma Hartley." "Emma," he repeated my name as if savoring fine wine. "Would you grant me this dance?" The orchestra had shifted to something slower, more intimate. Couples were already swaying on the dance floor in a practiced choreography of socially acceptable seduction. I'm not much of a dancer," I confessed, hating how breathless my voice sounded. "Neither am I," he lied, with a smile that suggested the exact opposite. "We can be terrible together." Against my better judgment, I placed my glass on a passing tray and accepted the hand he offered. The dance floor felt both incredibly crowded and completely empty as he pulled me into his arms. One hand rested on the small of my back, respectful yet possessive, while the other held mine with surprising gentleness. "You're nervous," he observed as we began to move. "You're observant," I shot back, trying to ignore how my body seemed to fit perfectly against his. "It's a job requirement." "And what job would that be?" His eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw something flash through them, a shadow maybe, or a warning. "Investments," he said simply. "And you?" "What brings Emma Hartley to a charity gala on a Friday night?" "Biomedical research," I answered, relaxing slightly as we found our rhythm. "I work on genetic therapies at a Mount Sinai lab." "Impressive." "Saving the world, one cell at a time." "Trying to. My mother started the research. I'm just continuing what she couldn't finish." His hand squeezed mine slightly. "I'm sorry for your loss." There was something in his voice, a genuine understanding that caught me off guard. "How do you know it was a loss?" "The way you talk about her." Present and past at the same time. I recognized the tone. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, but found only a familiar melancholy. "You've lost someone too." "My father, 5 years ago." The music changed again, but neither of us made a move to stop. We kept moving, lost in our own bubble as the world spun around us. "Tell me something," he murmured, gently twirling me. "Do you always wear red to charity galas?" "First time," I admitted, feeling bold. "I usually wear black. Safer, less visible." "Visibility suits you." His eyes traced my face as if memorizing every detail. "So does red." "Are you flirting with me, Mr. Sullivan?" "Desperately," he answered without a moment's hesitation. "Is it working?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed insistently in the small clutch I was holding. I ignored it. It buzzed again, more urgently. "Excuse me," I pulled away from him, already pulling out my phone. My father's name was flashing on the screen, accompanied by 3 missed calls. "I have to take this." I walked away from the dance floor, looking for a quieter corner. Jack didn't follow, but I could feel his eyes on me as I pressed the phone to my ear. "Dad? What's—" "Emma, thank God," my father's voice was strained, laced with pain. There was an incident. I'm at Presbyterian. It's not serious, but I'm on my way." I was already moving toward the exit, panic replacing the romantic haze of the last few minutes. 15 minutes. When I looked back, Jack was still on the dance floor, watching. Our eyes met across the crowd, and he gave a single nod, a gesture of understanding, not goodbye. I ran out of the plaza, my red dress fluttering behind me like the wings of a fleeing bird. The taxi I hailed smelled of cheap air freshener and broken dreams, so different from the world I had just left. As the lights of Manhattan streaked past the window in a neon blur, I closed my eyes and could still feel the warmth of Jack's hand on my waist, hear the way he said my name as if it were a prayer. Emma Hartley, researcher, daughter, a practical woman who didn't believe in fairy tales. But for 3 songs in a gilded ballroom, I had been someone else, someone who might belong in his world, someone a man like Jack Sullivan might want. The hospital appeared before us far too soon, jolting me back to reality with the smell of disinfectant and harsh, fluorescent lights. As I ran through the sterile corridors toward my father's room, the red dress felt like a ridiculous costume, evidence of a night that already felt more like a dream than a memory. I didn't know then that Jack Sullivan would spend the next 3 hours searching for me in that ballroom, questioning everyone who might have seen where the woman in red had gone. I didn't know that our worlds were already on a collision course, destined to shatter against each other like waves on rocks. All I knew, as I held my father's bandaged hand and listened to his explanation of a pursuit gone wrong, was that something had changed in those 3 songs. A door had been opened that could not be easily closed. And somewhere in the city that never sleeps, Jack Sullivan held in his memory the ghost of a scent, the feel of delicate fingers, and the unspoken promise of an end to our interrupted dance. 2 weeks had passed since the gala, and the red dress hung in my closet like a reminder of a night that felt increasingly improbable. I was back to my routine, lab by 7 a.m., lunch eaten distractedly over research reports, and late dinners with my dad when he wasn't on duty. "You're distracted," my father observed that Thursday, pushing Chinese food toward me. We were at his Upper West Side apartment, Loman containers scattered across the coffee table. Ever since that night at the hospital, Thomas Hartley hadn't changed much in the 5 years since Mom died. His gray hair was perhaps a bit thinner, the lines around his eyes deeper, but he still carried that authoritative presence that came from 20 years with the NYPD. The injury from that night, a deep cut on his arm from a confrontation with suspects, had been superficial, but it served as a reminder that my father played a dangerous game every day. "I'm just focused on research," I lied, twirling noodles on my fork. "We're close to a breakthrough with the genetic therapy for pediatric leukemia." He studied me with those detectives' eyes that saw through lies like X-rays through paper. Margaret would be proud. My mother's name always brought a wave of mixed emotions. Dr. Margaret Hartley had been a force of nature, brilliant, determined, unstoppable. Until that night in the lab, when an explosion caused by a chemical leak stole the future she had so meticulously planned. "Sometimes I wonder," I said softly, "if she would approve of the choices I've made, continuing her work instead of finding my own path." "You're saving lives, Emma. It is your own path. It just happens to intersect with hers." My phone vibrated, and I looked down expecting to see something from the lab. Instead, It was an unknown number with a simple message. Red still suits you. JS. My heart sped up. How had he gotten my number? Everything okay? My dad asked, noticing my expression. Yeah, just spam. I put the phone away, ignoring the next message that arrived. But later, alone in my apartment, I read the second message. Dinner, tomorrow, 8 p.m. No galas, no crowds, just us, please. I shouldn't have answered. Jack Sullivan was a mystery, and growing up a cop's daughter taught me that mysteries usually hid dangerous truths. But my fingers typed a reply before my mind could intervene. Where? Gabrielle's, Upper East Side. I promise you won't have to run away this time. The restaurant was discreet, elegant without being ostentatious. Jack was already waiting when I arrived, standing up as soon as he saw me. He wore a dark gray sweater and black trousers, more casual than the tuxedo, but no less striking. You came, he said, and there was genuine surprise in his voice. You sound shocked. Hopeful, he corrected, pulling out my chair. I've been hopeful for 2 weeks. Dinner flowed with surprising ease. We talked about everything and nothing. Books, he read voraciously, especially history. Travel, he had lived in Italy for a year. And family, carefully, both of us dancing around painful details. Tell me about your mother, I asked when the wine had softened the edges of caution. His eyes softened. Catherine Sullivan she's everything. She raised my sister and me alone for years, while my father built the family business. A pause, as if he were choosing his words carefully. She's the strongest person I know. Does she live in New York? Yeah. I've been trying to convince her to move somewhere smaller, more manageable, but she refuses to leave the house where she raised her kids. He smiled, but there was something sad about it. Stubborn as a mule. Sounds like you take after her. Emma. He leaned forward, and the intensity in his eyes made me hold my breath. I need to be honest about something. My stomach tightened. Here came the reveal. Wife, girlfriend. Something that would make all of this impossible. My family. We're not exactly what we seem. The family business, it's complicated. Complicated how? He opened his mouth to answer when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed completely, from open and vulnerable to something hard and closed off. I'm sorry, I have to take this. He stood up, touching my shoulder gently. 2 minutes. I watched him walk out to the restaurant patio, his body tense as he spoke. Through the glass, I could see his gestures grow more agitated, his free hand running through his hair in frustration. When he came back, the easy, charming man had been replaced by someone who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. I have to go, he said, and the regret in his voice seemed genuine. There's a family situation. Your mother? Yeah. It wasn't a complete lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. He threw cash on the table, much more than was needed. Let me at least get you home. In the car, the silence was heavy with unspoken words. When we pulled up to my building, he turned to me. I know I have no right to ask this, but will you give me another chance? Dinner, coffee, a walk in Central Park, anything. Why me? I asked. You could have any woman in Manhattan. Because, he said slowly, you're the first person in years who makes me want to be better than I am. Before I could answer, he leaned in and kissed my cheek, the touch so light it could have been imagination. Good night, Emma. The next few weeks were a delicate dance of stolen meetings and careful conversations. Coffee at a bookstore in the village, where he surprised me by knowing Neruda's poetry. An afternoon at the Met where he revealed an encyclopedic knowledge of Renaissance art. Dinners at small Italian restaurants where everyone seemed to know him but treated him with a deference that went beyond normal customer service. It was during one of those afternoons, while we were walking through the conservatory garden in Central Park, that the pieces began to click into place. My dad is investigating your family, I said abruptly, stopping near a fountain. Jack went very still beside me. How long have you known? Since last night. I saw the name Sullivan in his files. The Sullivan crime family. I couldn't finish. The head. Yeah. His voice was neutral, waiting for my reaction. Is that what this is about? Some sick game to get to my dad? The pain that crossed his face seemed genuine. At first, I thought maybe it was fate playing a cruel joke. The cop's daughter and the criminal. But then, he took my hand and I didn't pull away. Then I met you, and none of that mattered. How can it not matter? You're everything my dad has spent his life fighting against. Your father's a good man, Jack said surprisingly. One of the few honest ones left in the system. You don't know him. I know that Thomas Hartley turned down 3 bribes, that he lost a promotion for not turning a blind eye to corruption in the department, that he visits your mother's grave every first Friday of the month with sunflowers because they were her favorite flowers. The air left my lungs. You investigated me. I investigated him. You were... He paused, searching for words. A surprise. Emma, what I feel for you? No. I stood up abruptly. You can't say that. Not when everything between us is built on lies. I never lied to you. Omission is lying, Jack. He stood up too, and for a moment he looked so lost that I almost gave in to the urge to comfort him. My mother is dying, he said suddenly. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. She has maybe 6 months. The confession stopped me in my tracks. She's the only reason I'm still in this life. When she's gone. He looked out at the Manhattan skyline. Maybe it's time to find a way out. People like you don't just get out, Jack. People like me? There was a bitterness in his smile. You don't even know me, Emma. Then show me, I challenged. Show me who you really are. And that's how I found myself a week later at a community center in Queens, watching Jack Sullivan, the feared crime boss, serving soup to the homeless. I watched him gently help an elderly veteran with shaking hands, saw him kneel to talk to a child about her drawings, and witnessed the genuine gratitude in the eyes of people who clearly knew him well. Every month, the woman beside me said. She was the center's coordinator. For 5 years since his father died. He funds the entire program, but he always comes in person too. Why? I asked. He says it's what his mother would want. That power without purpose is just destruction waiting to happen. Later, as we drove back, I asked, how do you reconcile it? The good you do with the rest of it? I don't reconcile, he admitted. I live with the contradiction. We all have our shadows, Emma. The difference is that mine have names and addresses. The Waldorf Astoria glittered like an Art Deco jewel against the Manhattan night sky. Another charity gala, another dress, this time a navy blue one my father had insisted on buying for me. You need to look professional, he'd said, but I saw the way his eyes had lit up when I agreed to be his date. 3 months had passed since that first dinner with Jack. 3 months of secret texts, stolen meetings in places where 2 worlds shouldn't touch, and hurried kisses on dark street corners before we went our separate ways. You're radiant, my father said as we entered the ballroom. Thomas Hartley in his dress uniform was an imposing figure, service medals gleaming, military posture impeccable. Your mother would have... His words died. I followed his gaze across the ballroom and my heart stopped. Jack was there, talking to the police commissioner as if they were old friends. He saw me at the same instant, and something passed between us, an invisible electricity that made the air feel charged. Hartley, my father's voice was low, dangerous. Stay away from him. Dad, I know about the meetings, Emma. He didn't look at me, his eyes fixed on Jack like a predator assessing a threat. I thought it would pass, that you'd see reason, but this ends now. Before I could reply, Jack was walking toward us. Every step was measured, confident. But I saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his fists clenched and unclenched. Captain Hartley, Jack extended his hand. It's an honor to finally meet you formally. My father ignored the outstretched hand. Mr. Sullivan, surprised to see you here. Didn't realize criminals were welcome at charity events. Dad, I protested, mortified. Alleged criminals, Jack corrected smoothly, withdrawing his hand without losing his composure. I've never been convicted of anything, Captain. Unlike some in the police department. My father's face flushed. Listen here, you... Thomas, the commissioner's voice cut through the tension. I need you over here. My father gave one last warning look before walking away. Jack and I stood there, the party swirling around us as if we were in the eye of a hurricane. That was unnecessary, I said quietly. He started it. Jack looked tired all of a sudden. Emma, I can't keep doing this. Secret meetings, pretending we don't know each other in public. What are you suggesting? That I choose between you and my father? I'm suggesting that maybe it's time to stop hiding. He took a step closer, and I could feel the heat radiating off him. My mother wants to meet you. Jack, she knows about you, about us. Says she's never seen me like this. His hand brushed mine, a touch so brief no one would notice. Dinner, Sunday, just family. My family's right over there, I said, looking to where my father was in intense conversation with his colleagues, occasionally glancing our way. And he'd rather see me dead than have dinner with the Sullivans. That's not true, isn't it? I laughed bitterly. You don't know Thomas Hartley. He spent 20 years trying to take down your family. His wife died, and he kept going. He's been shot twice, stabbed once, and he kept going. You think he's going to stop because his daughter is... I stopped abruptly. Is what? Jack asked softly. What are you, Emma? In love with you, I thought, but didn't say. Instead, I murmured, confused. He slipped something into my hand. An elegant business card with only an address. Sunday, 7 o'clock. Catherine Sullivan doesn't take no for an answer, and honestly, neither do I. He walked away before I could protest, leaving me holding the card as if it were a live grenade. Sunday came too quickly. I stopped in front of the brownstone on the Upper East Side, my finger hovering over the doorbell. The house was elegant but understated. Nothing that screamed crime family, aside from the discreetly positioned security cameras. The door opened before I could ring, and Jack was there, wearing jeans and a simple white shirt. I had never seen him so casual, so normal. You came, he said, and the relief in his voice made me realize he really had doubted it. I told my dad I was working late at the lab, I confessed. First time I've lied to him in years. It's not a lie if you actually go to the lab afterward. The house inside was a study in contrasts. Antique furniture mixed with modern art, and family photographs covering every available surface. I saw a young Jack with a gap-toothed smile holding a fish. A teenage Jack with a younger girl who had his same green eyes. My sister, Sophia, he explained, following my gaze. She lives in Paris now, a safe distance from the family business. Does she know? About me? Yeah. About you? Not yet. Before I could reply, a woman's voice called from the kitchen. Jackson Sullivan, if you don't bring that girl in here immediately, I'm coming out there myself. Jack smiled apologetically. I told you she doesn't take no for an answer. Catherine Sullivan was smaller than I expected, but her presence filled the kitchen. Her gray hair was elegantly styled, her green eyes identical to her son's, and she wore an apron that said, "Kiss the Irish cook. You must be Emma." She enveloped me in a hug before I could even extend my hand. My goodness, you're even prettier than Jack described. Mom, Jack protested, but he was smiling. Thank you for having me, Mrs. Sullivan. Catherine, please. Mrs. Sullivan was my mother-in-law, God rest her soul. She guided me to a stool at the kitchen counter. Now tell me about this research you're doing. Jack says you're working on genetic therapies? The next 2 hours passed in a blur of homemade food, embarrassing stories from Jack's childhood, and the warmth of a family that clearly loved each other fiercely. Catherine was perceptive, intelligent, and completely aware of what her son was. We don't choose the life we're born into, she said, as she served tiramisu. But we choose what we do with it. Jack has been trying to protect all of us since he was 16. Sometimes I wonder what man he would have been if... She trailed off, looking out the window. If his father hadn't been murdered, I finished gently. She nodded. Michael wasn't a perfect man. Far from it, but he loved his children. Jack took on the burden so Sophia wouldn't have to, so I wouldn't be vulnerable. Mom, please, Jack interjected. Emma doesn't need to hear this. I think I do, I disagreed. If this is going to continue, I need to understand. Catherine took my hand. Her skin was as fragile as paper, and I could see the blue veins through it. My son is in love with you. I haven't seen him like this since, well, ever. But this world, darling, it takes its toll. Your father knows that better than most. You know my father? I knew your mother, she said surprisingly. Margaret. We met at a charity event years ago, before you were born. Brilliant woman. We talked about kids, careers, the price of trying to have it all. Tears pricked my eyes. She never mentioned it. She probably didn't know who I was then. Just two mothers talking about balancing family and ambition. Catherine squeezed my hand. She would have liked to see the woman you've become. Later, Jack took me to his office. It was lined with books, a surprising contrast to what I had expected. No safes, no maps marked with territory, just books and a mahogany desk that looked well used. Is this where I trailed off, not knowing how to finish. Plot criminal activities, he supplied with a half smile. Sometimes. Mostly I read. I try to find ways to make the business more legitimate. Is that even possible? He leaned against the desk, watching me. Vincent, my lieutenant, thinks not. Says I'm getting soft, losing focus. Because of me? Because of me. You just accelerated the process. He held out a hand, and after a moment of hesitation, I went to him. Emma, I need you to understand something. What's between us, it's real, but it's also dangerous. I'm starting to realize that. No, you're not. His voice turned hard. There are people in my organization who would see you as a weakness to be exploited. Your father as a threat to be eliminated. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to be honest. He held my face in his hands. If we're going to do this, it has to be with our eyes open, no illusions. What if I say yes? Eyes open, no illusions? In response, he kissed me. Not the careful, chivalrous kiss of our previous meetings, but something deeper, more desperate. When we broke apart, we were both breathless. Then I would do everything in my power to be worthy of that trust, he murmured against my lips. The sound of a door slamming shut separated us. Vincent Russo was in the office doorway, his dark eyes assessing the scene with something that looked like disgust. Sorry to interrupt, he said, though he clearly wasn't. We have a problem at the warehouse. Jack straightened, and I saw the transformation, the gentleman who had been with me replaced by the boss who commanded a criminal empire. What kind of problem? The kind that needs your immediate attention. Vincent's eyes slid to me. Alone. 10 minutes, Jack said. Now. There was a challenge in Vincent's voice that made the temperature in the room drop. Jack took a step toward him, and for a moment I thought there would be violence. Then Catherine appeared at the door. Vincent, she said calmly. What a surprise. I didn't know you were coming for dinner. I'm not, Mrs. S. Just business. Business can wait until my son has finished seeing our guest home. It was not a suggestion. Vincent gave a stiff nod and left. Catherine looked between Jack and me. Go, she said softly. Both of you. Now. In the car, the silence was tense. Jack drove with controlled precision, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Vincent doesn't like me, I observed. Vincent doesn't like change. He and my father built this empire together. He thinks he's entitled to an opinion on how it's run. And is he? Not anymore. There was a finality in his voice that made me shiver. When we pulled up to my building, he took my hand. I want you to have something. He placed a simple burner phone in my palm. Just for emergencies. My number is programmed in. If you ever feel unsafe, if someone approaches you, if anything feels wrong, you call. Jack, this is necessary. Please, Emma, for my peace of mind. I took the phone, its weight feeling much more significant than its few ounces. Your father is going to find out, he said. About us. When he does. We'll deal with it then, I interrupted. Together. He kissed me one last time, soft and sweet. Together. As I went up to my apartment, the emergency phone heavy in my purse, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted that night. The look in Vincent's eyes, the tension between him and Jack, Catherine's subtle warning. The storm was coming. I could feel it in the air like electricity before a lightning strike. I just didn't know it had already begun. The discovery came on a rainy Tuesday, 3 weeks after dinner with Catherine. Jack had left his apartment in a rush that morning, leaving his jacket behind in his haste. I had spent the night, the first time we had slept together in the most innocent sense of the word, just holding each other under the covers as rain drummed against the windows, talking about impossible futures until sleep overcame us. Emergency at the port, he had murmured against my hair at 5 a.m. Already getting dressed in the dark. Stay as long as you want. There's food in the fridge. Now, at 8 a.m., I was making coffee in his immaculate kitchen when I noticed a forgotten leather briefcase on the counter. It wasn't my business. I should have left it where it was, finished my coffee, and gone to the lab. but the Sullivan emblem embossed on the leather seemed to call to me. I opened it before my conscience could intervene. On top were contracts, seemingly legitimate. Import and export, names of companies I didn't recognize. But as I flipped through, the documents grew more specific. Cargo manifests, chemical authorizations. My blood ran cold when I saw the list of compounds. Benzene, toluene, acetone in industrial quantities. The same combination that had caused the explosion at the biomedical research lab in Brooklyn last month. 3 researchers dead. And at the bottom of each authorization, Jack's signature. The pages fell from my hands like poisoned leaves. My scientific mind already made the connections. Those chemicals, in those proportions, had only one use when combined: the production of illicit substances on a massive scale. But worse than that was the date. 2 weeks before the explosion. Jack had authorized the transport of the same chemicals that killed those people. Colleagues, researchers just like me. The sound of the front door opening made me jump. I forgot the damn briefcase, Jack was saying into his phone as he walked in. Tell Vincent that. He stopped when he saw me, the open briefcase between us like a confession. I slowly lowered the phone. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Emma. 3 people died. My voice came out strangely calm. Sarah Chen was pregnant. David Martinez had 2 small kids. Amy Thompson had just defended her thesis. I didn't know. You signed it. I pushed the papers toward him. Your signature authorizing the transport of chemicals that only have one purpose when combined in these quantities. Emma, please let me explain. Explain what? That you're responsible for their deaths? That while you were kissing me and talking about futures, you were signing death warrants? He tried to step closer, but I backed away. It's not what it looks like. Then tell me what it is. Because it looks like the man I'm in love with is a murderer? The words came out before I could stop them. In love. Present tense. Even with the evidence between us. You're in love with me? His voice broke. I was. I am. I don't know. Tears burned in my eyes. How could you do this? How could you look me in the eye knowing you had blood on your hands? I sign hundreds of documents a week. Vincent brings them, says it's routine. Vincent. The name fell between us like a stone. Vincent handles the documents. He manages the port operations. Always has, since my dad's time. Something in my expression must have alerted him because Jack picked up the briefcase, examining the documents more carefully. I saw the moment he understood, his eyes widening, the blood draining from his face. These numbers are altered, he murmured. The quantities. Emma, I would never have authorized this. Your signature. It's authentic. But these aren't the documents I signed. He grabbed his phone. Marco, I need you to pull the original files for the chemical transport from March. Now. While we waited, we sat on opposite sides of the room, the space between us feeling impassable. If Vincent altered the documents, I began slowly. Why? Money, power, maybe both. Jack ran a hand over his face. He's been getting bolder lately, questioning decisions, making side deals. His phone rang. I only heard his side of the conversation, but it was enough. I understand. No, don't do anything yet. Just keep this between us. He hung up, looking years older in minutes. The original documents show legal quantities for legitimate industrial use. Vincent altered them after my signature. He's using you as a front and setting me up to take the fall if something goes wrong. He laughed bitterly. Like it did. Jack, we have to go to the police. With what proof? Documents that show my signature. Authorizing lethal chemicals? Vincent has covered his tracks. It will look like I'm trying to blame him for my crimes. Your father has wanted me in jail for years. Do you think he'll believe me over his own detective? Detective. My stomach dropped. You didn't know? Jack looked at me with surprise. Vincent has been an informant for the department for 2 years, feeding them just enough information to keep his side operation safe. The apartment door burst inward before we could process that revelation. Vincent walked in, followed by 4 men I didn't recognize. Men with cold eyes and hands hovering over poorly concealed weapons. My apologies for the intrusion, Vincent said, though his smile suggested anything but regret. But it seems we have a delicate situation. Jack moved to stand between me and them. Vincent, what is this? This, my young friend, is what we call a change in management. Vincent picked up the briefcase from the table. Interesting documents, aren't they? Especially with your signature all over them. You altered. Prove it. Oh, wait, you can't. Because the originals suffered an unfortunate fire at the warehouse this morning. Along with Marco, sadly. A loyal man, Marco. Too loyal. Jack took a step forward, but the guns came out instantly. Vincent admonished. Let's keep this civilized. After all, we have a lady present. His eyes slid to me. The lovely Ms. Hartley. You know, your father will be devastated when he learns his daughter was involved with the man responsible for the chemical terror attack in Brooklyn. It wasn't a terror attack, I spat. It was incompetence, your incompetence. But who's going to believe that? Especially when they find more evidence in Jack's apartment. Plans, maps, maybe even a taped confession. My mother, Jack began, is being collected as we speak. Vincent checked his watch. Medical hold, of course. A sick woman needs constant care. My care. I watched Jack break. Not externally. Externally, he remained perfectly still. But something in his eyes died. What do you want? What I've always wanted. The Sullivan Empire. You will transfer control to me. All the businesses, all the accounts, all the contacts. In exchange, your mother gets the medical treatment she needs, and Ms. Hartley here doesn't become an accessory to terrorism. Emma has nothing to do with this. Doesn't she? The girlfriend of the mob boss, found with incriminating documents, fingerprints all over the evidence. Vincent pulled a recorder from his pocket. I even have recordings of you two discussing the chemicals. Out of context, of course, but who's going to question it? My phone, my actual phone, not the emergency one, began to ring. My father's name was flashing on the screen. Answer it, Vincent ordered. Act naturally. One wrong word, and Mrs. Sullivan has a tragic medical accident. With trembling hands, I answered. Hi, Dad. Emma, where? Are you? His voice was strained. You didn't go to the lab. I'm doing some shopping in Manhattan. I need you to come down to the precinct. Now. Why? What happened? There's been a break in the Brooklyn explosion case. We have a suspect. I looked at Jack, who was watching my every move. Who? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Jack Sullivan. Emma, I know about you two. I know you've been seeing him. I need you to come in and give a statement. Dad, it's not a request, Emma. It's for your own safety. There are things you don't know about him, things we just found out. Vincent was gesturing for me to continue. Okay, I said weakly. I'm on my way. 30 minutes, and Emma, come alone. The line went dead. Vincent clapped slowly. Brilliant. You have 30 minutes to decide, Jack. Sign everything over to me, or let her go and watch the two people you love most be destroyed. I don't need 30 minutes, Jack said calmly. I'll sign, now. But Emma leaves first. Jack, don't, I began. Go. He didn't look at me. Go to your dad. Tell him the truth, all of it. How touching, Vincent sneered. True love sacrificing itself. But no, she stays until everything is signed and transferred. For insurance, you understand. The next 20 minutes were the longest of my life. I watched Jack sign document after document, transferring a criminal empire built over generations. Vincent supervised each signature with predatory satisfaction. The offshore account codes, Vincent demanded. Jack provided them without hesitation. The transport routes, handed over. The list of officials on the payroll. My stomach turned as Jack handed over a file that would effectively end dozens of careers. Excellent. Vincent put the last document away. See? Cooperation makes everything easier. Now let her go, Jack said. Of course. But first, Vincent gestured, and one of his men grabbed my arm, pulling me forward. A little insurance. I felt the prick of the needle before I could react. Something cold spread through my arm. Just a sedative, Vincent said casually as my vision began to blur. When you wake up, all of this will be over. The last thing I saw was Jack's face, a mask of rage and despair, before the darkness took me. I woke up in the back seat of my own car, parked a block from the precinct. My head throbbed, my mouth was dry, and the dashboard clock showed that 3 hours had passed. The emergency phone Jack had given me was on the seat next to me, along with a single piece of paper. Go to your dad. Tell the truth. Trust Marco. J. But Vincent had said Marco was dead. With shaky legs, I got out of the car. The precinct was in chaos when I entered. Officers running, phones ringing, voices yelling orders. Emma, my father rushed to me, pulling me into a tight hug. Thank God. Where have you been? Dad, I need to tell you. Jack Sullivan kidnapped his own mother. He interrupted. He fled with her 2 hours ago. Left a confession about the Brooklyn chemicals, admitting everything. My blood ran cold. No, that's not right. Vincent Russo has been our informant. He's helping us track them down right now. The emergency phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. Warehouse 47. Come alone, or she dies. V. Catherine. Escaping the precinct was easier than it should have been. My father was coordinating search teams, trusting that I would be safe in the middle of dozens of cops. I slipped out the back exit, my mind racing as I navigated the New York streets toward the Port District. Warehouse 47 was at the far end of the industrial complex, a corrugated metal structure that had seen better days. The sun was setting, painting the sky a blood red, a color that now haunted me. Marco was waiting in the shadows near the side entrance. Ms. Hartley, he was pale, a makeshift bandage wrapped around his left arm. Thank God you got the message. Vincent said you were dead. Almost. I managed to escape the fire, but he thinks he got me. He guided me through a maze of stacked containers. Jack is inside. Vincent has Mrs. Sullivan in the second-floor office. How many men? 6, maybe 7, all loyal to Vincent. Marco stopped. Ms. Hartley, there's something you need to know. Your father, he's not corrupt. But Vincent has photos, fake documents. If this goes wrong, he's going to drag Captain Hartley down with him. The revelation hit me like a punch. Vincent had thought of everything. Where is Jack exactly? Tied up on the main floor. Vincent wants him to watch. Watch what? Marco's face contorted. Vincent plans to kill Mrs. Sullivan and blame Jack. Make it look like he snapped, killed his own mother. With the forged confession about Brooklyn, no one will question it. I took out the emergency phone, but Marco shook his head. No signal here. Vincent has jammers. So what do we do? I'll create a distraction. You get to Jack. He handed me a pocket knife. It's all I have. It was a terrible plan, but it was the only one we had. We entered from opposite sides. I could hear Vincent's voice echoing through the cavernous space, giving a speech about legacies and power. I crawled between boxes and equipment, my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Jack was in the center of the warehouse, hands tied behind his back, blood trickling from a cut on his temple. But his eyes were alert, searching, and when he saw me in the shadows, something like hope flickered in them. Marco's distraction came in the form of a container catching fire. Black smoke began to fill the space, alarms blaring. 2 of Vincent's men ran to investigate. It was my chance. I scrambled to Jack, frantically sawing at the ropes with the pocket knife. Where's your mom? Office. Emma, you shouldn't be here. Shut up and help me get you out of this. The ropes finally gave way. Jack got to his feet, taking the knife from me. How many? Marco said 6 or 7. Marco is alive? Another container exploded into flames. Marco was being creative. Jack! Vincent's voice cut through the chaos. I know you're loose. I know your little girlfriend is here. Come join us in the office, or Catherine Sullivan learns how to fly. The office had windows that looked out over a 3-story drop to concrete. We went up the metal stairs, each step echoing. Vincent was waiting, holding Catherine near the open window. She looked frail, exhausted, but her eyes still burned with defiance. What a touching family reunion, Vincent sneered. The prodigal son, the dying mother, and the unsuitable girlfriend. Let her go, Vincent, Jack said calmly. I'm the one you have a problem with. True. But you see, I learned something in all these years of working for your father. The best way to destroy a man isn't to kill him. It's to make him live with the loss. Please, I begged. She's sick. She has nothing to do with this. Doesn't she? Vincent pulled Catherine closer to the window. She's a Sullivan. She created this. He gestured at Jack. The little prince who thought he could change the rules, soften the edges. You know what your father would have done to me for betrayal? My father was a monster, Jack said. That's why I'm trying to be different. Different, Vincent spat the word. Weak, you mean? Your father built an empire. You were ready to throw it away for a girl. No, Catherine spoke, her voice hoarse but firm. He was ready to build something better, something that could last. Sirens blared in the distance. A lot of sirens. Vincent smiled. Ah, the cavalry, right on time. Imagine the headlines. Mob boss kills mother in standoff with police. Tragic. They'll know it was you, I said. Will they? I have 2 years of credibility as an informant. You two have, what? The word of a woman in love and a desperate criminal? He was right. Without proof, without witnesses other than ourselves, Vincent had crafted the perfect narrative. That's when my father came in, gun drawn, followed by 3 officers. Everyone put your weapons down, he ordered. All of you. Captain Hartley, Vincent said smoothly. Right on time. Jack here was just about to do something terrible. Emma, get away from him, my dad ordered. His gun pointed at Jack. Dad, no! Vincent is lying. He falsified everything. Emma, don't, my father's voice was steel. I know you think you love him, but I know what I know, I yelled. Vincent doctored the documents. He caused the Brooklyn explosion. He's blackmailing Jack. She's confused, Vincent said with false concern. Stockholm Syndrome, perhaps. Jack has been manipulating her for months. I saw doubt flicker across my father's face, his training fighting against his paternal instinct. Catherine coughed, a wet, terrible sound. Blood splattered her lips. Mom! Jack took a step toward her, but the guns went up. She needs medical help, I pleaded. Dad, please. That's when Marco appeared in the doorway, carrying a metal box. Captain Hartley, the original security camera recordings, before Vincent edited them. Vincent moved fast, pulling Catherine in front of him as a shield while pulling out a gun. Everyone freeze. It's over, Vincent, my father said calmly. Drop the weapon. You don't understand, Vincent hissed. None of you do. I built this as much as any Sullivan. I deserved more than to be Jack's little lapdog. Catherine groaned, her legs giving way. Vincent had to adjust his grip, and Jack moved. It was pure instinct, pure desperation. Jack lunged forward the moment Vincent was off balance. The gun fired, once, twice. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. When the dust settled, Vincent was on the ground, my father on top of him with handcuffs. Jack was holding his mother, putting pressure on a wound on her shoulder that was bleeding but didn't look fatal. And I was standing there, physically untouched but changed forever. Paramedics, my father was yelling. We need paramedics up here. I knelt beside Jack and Catherine, using my medical knowledge to help staunch the bleeding. It's going to be okay, I murmured, not knowing if I was talking to them or myself. Catherine took my hand with the one not holding her son. Right, girl, she whispered. The next few hours were a blur. Hospital, interrogations. Marco handing over evidence that had survived the fire, enough to prove Jack's innocence in Brooklyn, enough to expose Vincent's side operations. I sat on an uncomfortable hospital chair, watching the sun rise through the grimy windows. My father sat beside me, looking like he had aged a decade in one night. The recordings show everything, he said quietly. Vincent altering documents, planning Catherine's kidnapping. Jack tried to do the right thing. I know. I should have listened to you. You were doing your job. He took my hand. No, I was letting the job blind my judgment. Your mother always said I saw the world in too much black and white. She was right about a lot of things. Emma. He turned to face me. Jack Sullivan is still who he is. His family, the business. That doesn't disappear just because Vincent was worse. I know. Do you love him? The question hung between us, heavy with implications. Yes, I said simply. I do. My father nodded slowly. Then we'll have to figure out how to navigate this, together. The door to Catherine's room opened and Jack came out, looking exhausted but relieved. She's stable, asking for you, he said to me, then looked at my father. Captain Hartley. Sullivan. My father stood. We have a lot to discuss. Yes, sir. But not today. My father walked past Jack, pausing at the last moment. Thank you for keeping Emma safe. Always, Jack replied, without hesitation. Father walked away, leaving us in the empty hospital hallway. So, Jack said, attempting a small smile. That was insane, terrifying, almost fatal. I was going to say enlightening. I leaned against him, feeling the tension finally leave my body. Vincent? Arrested. Multiple charges, including the Brooklyn deaths. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison. And the Sullivan Empire? Jack was silent for a long moment. It has to change. Maybe it's time to legitimize some of the operations. Maybe it's time for something new. Is that possible? With the right woman by my side, I think anything is possible. 6 months later, I was in the same plaza ballroom where it had all begun. Another charity event, another dress. But this time, I wasn't alone. Jack was by my side, his hand resting protectively on the small of my back, as we talked with potential donors for the new medical research foundation we had established, the Margaret Hartley Foundation for Genetic Research, funded with money Jack had systematically siphoned from the less than legitimate Sullivan operations. Dr. Hartley, the hospital's dean, greeted. I had defended my PhD 2 months earlier, finally completing the research my mother had started. I've heard extraordinary rumors about your clinical trial results. Preliminary results, I corrected, but I couldn't contain my smile. But yes, the genetic therapy is showing a 73% remission rate in early-stage pediatric leukemia patients. Extraordinary, and Mr. Sullivan, I understand your company is expanding into legitimate biotechnology. Jack nodded. Sullivan Enterprises is completely out of non-traditional imports. We're focused on pharmaceutical development and medical logistics now. It was almost true. The transition had been painful, expensive, and was still ongoing. Some of Jack's old associates hadn't been happy about the shift. But with Vincent gone and Catherine recovered enough to add her voice of support, the transformation was happening. Excuse me, a familiar voice interrupted. My father was there, not in uniform this time, but in a tuxedo that clearly made him uncomfortable. May I steal my daughter for a dance? Jack kissed my temple. She's all yours, Captain. It was still strange, this cautious truce between them. They weren't friends, they probably never would be. But they had found a way to coexist in my life. You're radiant, my dad said, as he led me onto the dance floor. Thank you for coming, Catherine insisted. He looked to where Jack's mother was sitting at a table, still frail but alive, surrounded by friends. Formidable woman. She is. Emma. My father hesitated. I got my retirement package today. 25 years of service. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure it would go through. With the investigation into Vincent, his connections in the department, he shrugged. But it's clean. Full pension, full honors. What are you going to do now? Catherine offered me a job. He laughed at my shocked expression. Security for the foundation. Making sure the money goes where it's supposed to, that the research stays protected. Are you considering it? Your mother would have found it hilarious. Thomas Hartley working with the Sullivans. He twirled me gently. But yeah, I'm considering it. Maybe it's time to stop fighting old wars. The music changed, and Jack appeared at our side. May I? My father passed my hand to Jack with an exaggerated solemnity. Take care of her, always. As we danced, on the very same floor where we had first danced almost a year ago, Jack murmured, I have something for you. If it's another piece of jewelry, I told you it's not. He led me out to the terrace, the same one I had thought about escaping to on that first night. The city spread before us, a sea of lights and possibilities. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. Inside was a deed. Warehouse 47, he said, where it all almost ended. I bought it from Vincent's estate. Jack, why? Because I want to tear it down. Build something new, a research center maybe, or affordable housing. Something that helps instead of destroys. He held my face in his hands. I want to build something that makes you proud to be with me. Jack. My voice broke. I'm already proud. Are you? You risked everything to protect your mother. You gave up an empire to do the right thing. How could I not be proud? He kissed me then, right there on the terrace with Manhattan as our witness. When we broke apart, something glittered in his hand. It's not jewelry, he said quickly. He opened the small box. Inside was a key. It's for the lab, the new one, the one being built next to your current research building. Triple the space, state-of-the-art equipment, everything you need to expand your trials. Jack, this must have cost. What it cost was seeing you working in substandard conditions when you could be saving more lives. He slid the key into my hand. Besides, it's an investment. My new biotech consultant says genetic research is the future. Your consultant? Brilliant woman, doctor, looks good in red, I laughed, leaning against him. And navy blue? Especially navy blue. We stood there, watching the city, the weight of the past year finally beginning to lift. It hadn't been easy. The investigation into Vincent had uncovered corruption that went all the way up. Jack had testified, providing evidence that cleared dozens of cases. Some days, we needed security. Some days, the threats felt very real. But there had been victories too. The first patient going into full remission with the new therapy. Catherine strong enough to travel to Paris to visit Sophia. My father smiling genuinely for the first time since Mom died. You know, Jack said thoughtfully, we never did finish that first dance. We didn't. The night's still young. I let him lead me back into the ballroom, past my father talking animatedly with Catherine about security procedures. Past Marco, now Jack's head of security, dancing awkwardly with one of the researchers from my lab. The orchestra was playing something slow and sweet. Jack pulled me into his arms and we began to move. No emergencies this time, he promised. No ringing phones, no running away, no secrets. We danced for 3 songs, then a 4th, a 5th. People began to leave, but we kept moving, lost in our own world. Emma, Jack said against my hair. That night when you ran off in the red dress. Yes? I spent 3 hours looking for you. I questioned everyone. No one knew who the woman in red who had disappeared was. Why did you look for so long? He twirled me, pulled me back. Because the moment I saw you across that ballroom, I knew my life had changed. I didn't know how, I didn't know why, but I knew I had to find you again. What if you hadn't? Then I would have spent my life looking. The ballroom was nearly empty now. The orchestra was packing up their instruments, but we were still dancing, finishing what we had started a year ago. I love you, I whispered. I know, he replied. I love you too. My father appeared at the entrance, Catherine leaning on his arm. Are you two coming? Catherine's insisting on a celebratory champagne. I looked at Jack. Ready to face the future? With you? He laced our fingers together. Ready for anything. We walked out of the plaza together, the cop's daughter and the former crime boss, the researcher and the reformed businessman, Emma and Jack. Our love had been born in a world of secrets and shadows, had survived betrayal and violence, and had emerged into something real and true. The red dress still hung in my closet, but it was no longer a reminder of an impossible night. It was proof that sometimes, the most unexpected moments lead to the most extraordinary destinations. 3 months later, when Jack proposed to me in the same lab he had gifted me, I said yes without hesitation. My father officiated the ceremony. Catherine cried happy tears, and we danced all night. The newspaper headline read, Sullivan Air Mary's doctor in private ceremony. They didn't mention how 2 worlds collided and created something entirely new. They didn't talk about redemption, forgiveness, or the power of love to transform even the darkest foundations into something luminous. But we knew. And that was enough. Somewhere in Manhattan, Warehouse 47 was being torn down. In its place would rise the Margaret Hartley Community Center, offering free medical treatment to low-income families. Sometimes, the most beautiful endings are born from the most unlikely beginnings. And sometimes, all it takes is a dance, a red dress, and the courage to believe that love can truly conquer all, even if all includes the Irish mob, the NYPD, and 2 hearts too stubborn to ever give up on each other.